Good morning, students. This is Ramesh Shende from JS College of Commerce, Varda. And today we are going to discuss the poem Dulce et Decorum Est, written by Wilfred Owen. And this poem is prescribed for BCom wholesale supplementary English. So basically, this is a war poem. It is related to war, and you see, it is somewhat written in different language. Dulce et decorum est. So in English, it means it is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. So this is the meaning of this title. Dulce et decorum est. What does it mean? It is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. So as I told that this poem is written by Wilfred Owen, I would like to give you some information about this great poet. He was poet, but he was a soldier also, right? So it means he has already fought the battleground. He actually participated in the battle. So it is the first hand experience which he penned down in form of poem, giving this title Dulce et Decorum Est. So Wilfred Owen was born in the year 1893 and died in the year 1918. He is known for war poetry. His poems mostly written in the Frenches provide detailed description and unsparing analysis. Okay, detailed analysis of the horrors of war. Why this is written? It must be clear to all of you. It's because many of us means not only the students or the teachers, but across the world, when you think about the war, most of the people believe that it is really a glorious act. But when we listen all these things from a person who has actually participated in such activities, especially the wars, then definitely we reach the conclusion that war is not always glorious. Many times it is horrific also, right? And as Wilfred Owen was a soldier, he has given the first-hand experience through these words in this poem. So he of the horrors of war. After a brief stint as a teacher, he was a teacher also, okay, for a very short period of time, and after some years or after some days or months, he left that job, right? And after that, he joined the army. He fought in France from January 1917. During the war, he was severely injured. He had got injured also in the war, which is very obvious, right? He spent many days in a bomb crater by the side of the torn remains of an officer. It shows that when he was in the battleground, one of his officers had died and he was beside that body. Right. After receiving medical treatment, just a moment ago I told that he had got injured in the war, so definitely he was hospitalized and he was treated well there. And after that, what happened? He returned to fight again. He again joined the army, even though he was injured. No wonder he was awarded the Military Cross for bravery, and he was awarded this medal for his bravery. He was killed in war soon after that. His Wilfred Owen is that person who sacrificed his life for the sake of his country. He was not just a literary person. At the same time, he was a soldier also, and he sacrificed his life. He died, he was killed. Okay, but when he was alive, when he was actually fighting on the battleground, that time he penned out some beautiful poems. I'm using the word beautiful. In fact, those words are really beautiful, and those beautiful words make us realize the horror of the war also. We must realize this thing. It is not always glorious, it is not always wonderful, it is not always surprising, it is sometimes horrific also. Under the influence of Wilfred Sassoon, Owen modified his style to relate. To relate means to narrate, to tell the horrors of war in his poems. Okay. In the very beginning, I have already told that this is basically a war poem. He declared that his subject was the pity of war, and that the poetry is in the pity. Dulce et Decorum is one of the anti-war poems. This is what anti-war. It is written against, not glorifying the war, okay, but narrating the horrors of the war, right? In this poem, he abhors, abhors, abhors means hates. He criticizes, he castigates, he abhors the idea of eulogizing, praising, glorifying the soldiers as heroes. Okay. In his opinion, the shower of gas shells on ill-equipped. It means the many time the soldiers do not have sufficient weapons. Okay, ill-equipped soldiers denies the fighters a chance to show their martial caliber. Now let's come to the point. Let's read this poem. Bent Double. Just imagine that they're on the battleground, they're walking through the mud, right? There is wet mud and they're walking through that mud. Okay, and in order to save themselves from the attacks of the enemy, they are in this posture. Okay, they are already bent just to hide, just to conceal themselves from the eyes of the attackers, enemy, enemy soldiers. And secondly, double bend. Why this is used in the very beginning? Because already they are in this, okay, posture, and secondly they are carrying sacks on their backs. What may be there in their sacks? What was there in the sacks which they were carrying on their backs? Guns, rifles, right? Bombs, bullets, etc. All these things related to the war, because they were actually, this is the first hand experience of Wilfred Owen, and that's why we find that it is not written in the present tense, it is written in the past tense. He has experienced all these things. He is narrating his experiences which he had when he was actually fighting the battle against the enemies. So bend double. Who were bend double? The soldiers who were walking through the mud in the battleground, like old beggars. They were looking as old beggars, right? Under sacks, it means they were actually carrying sacks. So the soldiers who were there, who were walking through the mud, were carrying sacks. They were looking like old beggars. Knock kneed. They were using their knees to walk. They even could not walk upright, right? Because of that atmosphere, that environment. They knew that time that any attack was possible from the side of the enemy. So that in order to save themselves, to hide themselves from the attacks of their enemies, they were walking on their knees, coughing like hags. Hags means witch, an ugly woman, right? Their faces had become like that. We cursed through sludge. Sludge means thick and wet mud. They were making their way through that mud. They were moving ahead, and there was every possibility of attack from the enemies. Right? There was the possibility of their being killed also. Right? But they were ready because they were the soldiers. Nowhere you will find the word brave. Okay, because he does not want to glorify the war. In fact, instead of that, he is criticizing. He is showing how it is useless to fight. In fact, he wants to tell us the horrors of the battleground. That's why he has deliberately avoided to use some words, some certain words which glorify, okay, such situations. Till on the haunting flares, bomb shells, gas shells. They were moving ahead, making their way through that mud until there was an attack from the side of the enemy. When he and his other colleagues or the other soldiers who were in that company were moving ahead, taking their way through the wet mud, heard the sound of bombs. Right? They changed their direction and they drew themselves back. Right? and towards our distant rest began to trudge very difficultly. They were making their way. And when they heard that sound, loud sound of the bombs, they returned to some extent. Okay, they changed their way. Dead slow we moved. They were looking like the dead bodies all over. There was mud on their face, on their body. They were carrying heavy sacks, guns, bombs, bullets, etc. And with that heavy luggage they were moving ahead. Many had lost their boots. Many of the soldiers who were along with this Wilfred Owen had lost their boots. They were barefooted and they were walking because they felt that it was their duty. That duty was assigned to them by the authorities of their country. And after that, but limped on, bloodshot. They were not covered with the mud only. Everywhere on their body, there were wounds. Many of them, or most of them, were wounded. Okay, and you see, blood shots were there. They were covered with blood. Okay, blood was literally gushing out of their body because of the injuries that they had got when they were fighting, when they were walking in the battleground. All went lame. Many of them could not walk even properly. All blind. They could not see clearly because of the mud and that fog and all those things. Drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoods. Many of them, it was so dense, right, that many of them could not even hear the sound of the bomb. Just imagine that they were living in such a situation, in such a condition on the battleground. We live here in the society, in the country, we are safe because of them. But what conditions they are compelled to live in, it should be a matter of concern for all the people of the world. Of tired, they were totally tired. Many of them could not walk properly. Many of them, as if they had become lame, crippled, or stripped, 5 9s that dropped behind. So many bombs were making sound. Okay, gas, pick boys, and one of them, in between, what happened when they were moving ahead, making a way to that mud. One of those boys, one of the soldiers, literally loudly said, gas, right? It means there was a bomb blast. Okay, someone had fired the bomb shell and he heard that noise, he heard that loud sound, and he wanted to alert his colleagues, other soldiers of the same company. An excessive fumbling, he could not even speak properly. He was so in tension that he could not even speak properly. Fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, that put on the helmets and they wore it properly when one of those soldiers alerted the rest of the soldiers. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling. They were injured. Many injuries were there all for the body of those people. Okay, it was not easy for them to make a way. Actually, they was in the mud, right? And floundering like a man in fire on lime. Floundering means to walk with great difficulty in mud. Dim. Through the mystery panes and thick green light, as under a dark sea, I saw him drowning in all my dreams. Before my helpless sight, he plunks at me, guttering, choking, groaning. And here Wilfred Owen says, what does he say here? He says that it was just like a dream, and it was not anyway a peaceful, a good dream. It was really like a nightmare. It was a very bad dream. Wilfred Owen says this. He says that as if he was drowning, one of the soldiers who had got injured, heavily injured, as if he was drowning in the sea of the darkness. It was just like a nightmare for this man, this poet Wilfred Owen. He was that injured man was choking. He could not speak properly, even L properly, Y double L, to call loudly, as if he was running in the sea of the darkness, in that sea of the mud. This is the situation. Many times the soldiers get confronted, the enemies, and they are nowhere in good condition. They don't have choice to hide anywhere, and face to face they have to fight with their enemies. If you think it impartially, you see on both the sides there are soldiers. There are some as fathers, some as brothers. They also have their own families, but still they have to fight to save their motherland from the enemies. But when someone dies, it is a great loss not only to the nation, it is a great loss to that particular family also. So it is really horrific when we, by sitting in the peaceful atmosphere, glorify the wars. We must speak to those soldiers also, right? So next it says, if in some smothering, it was disturbing totally. Disturbing dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in. And in between, what happened? A soldier who had got heavily injured was put. Literally, the word is used. Flung. They means all these people, rest of the soldiers, helped that man and literally threw him into the wagon. Okay, a car was there with them, and watched the white eyes writhing in his face, rolling in pain. And he says, Wilfred Owen says that it was very clearly visible that there was too much pain in his body, and it was clear from his withering eyes, right? Breathing in his face, and watch the white eyes, his hanging face, like a devil's sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gurgling from the froth corrupted lungs. So what happened when they put, actually I'm using this word put, okay, when they put that injured soldier into the van, the driver started driving the wagon, and whenever the car bounced, blood came out of his body. I have already told that there were so many injuries on his body, and you see the blood was gushing out literally from his body. So it was to this extent horrific. He is very selective in the selection of words. He wants to depict, he wants to delineate the horrors of the wars. Come gargling from the froth corrupted lungs, of seen as cancer, bitter as cud, of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. What was wrong with that soldier? What was his fault? Nothing. He was fighting for his country, he was fighting for his people. But what was his experience? It was nowhere pleasant, right? It was nowhere pleasant. But out of compulsion, or out of, say, the feeling of patriotism, all these people have to fight in the battleground and have to bear all these, difficulties when they are actually in the battleground. So, of vile incurable sores on innocent tongues, he was innocent. My friend, now Wilfred Owen addresses the readers. My friend means we, the readers, the people who are reading this poem, Dulcet Decorum Est. You would not tell with such high zest, my dear friends, my dear readers, don't tell the children with high zest what To children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie. This is the lie, at least for Wilfred Owen. Old lie. Which old lie? Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. Pro patria mori. What is the meaning of this? He says, he appeals to the people, don't tell your children the old lie which is being passed to the next generation by this generation. Okay, generation after generation, believe this lie. Wilfred Owen says, what is the meaning of this? It is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. It is not always sweet and honorable to die for one's country. Many times it is very horrific, and we must realize this. I think he wants to give a message to the world that we do not need to fight among ourselves. We can settle down the problems. If there are problems among the countries, among the individuals also, then war is not the only solution. Diplomatic discussions can also take place. We can move ahead with a solution through such discussions also. We must have this conscience that when we send the troops, when we send the companies to fight against the enemies, we also suffer. They also suffer. At last, we all are human beings. So we must avoid the fight, we must avoid the war and save human beings from such wars. This is a wonderful message that Wilfred Owen wants to give to the world. So this is the poem Dulce et decorum est by Wilfred Owen, and we stop. Thank you.